Okay, turn to page 32. We'll begin the next chapter, and we've mentioned it already. And the next chapter is all about Birchat Shabbat, the blessing that comes with keeping Shabbat, the great benefit of blessing. Let us start. At this point, you should all know me, and let's start with the word itself. What does the word Baracha actually mean? What is this word, which we see is going to be mentioned a number of times, but what does the word literally mean? Because it's going to be very much linked to Shabbat. Yes. So it's usually translated by Rabbi R. Scroll as a blessing. Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't know what that means. Right? Yes?
Doesn't it come from the word brecha, which is a pool?
Very interesting. There is another shorish in there, which is a pool of water, a source of water. Right? A source. Right? A brecha in modern Hebrew, right? A spring, a geyser of water, absolutely. Anyone else? Can you see another word in there? In the shoresh? A part of the body.
Knee.
Very good. You get that? You knew that already.
Yeah.
Very good. It's knees. Birkayim. That's interesting. Knees. Why would the word knee, right, being the word for a source of water, being the word a blessing? So let's go back. Let's do a little historical context, and then we'll find out what exactly is going on over here. Where do we see the word bracha mentioned the first time in the Torah? The Vilna Gaon tells us the first time Hebrew word is in the Torah, appears in the Torah is where its source comes from. That's really what it's all about. And every time you see the word again, it's coming from that first time. So in what context do we see the word bracha appear in the Torah? Very, very good. But did I mention that? You knew that already?
Yeah,
I mentioned it. Good, you remembered it. I'm delighted. Right, when Hashem created the world, He created fish. And fish were going to be depleted, right? By each other and by us. So Hashem wanted a lot more fish than other creatures. So there's many, many, many fish in the oceans, right? Most of this planet's covered in oceans, and there's a lot of fish inside. So the first time you see the word baracha is in relation to the creation of the dug. In relation to dug, the fish. Why? Because we need a lot of them. So the word baracha, says Rashi, is a lashon of riboy, lots.
Did we do that in your other class?
Lots. I'm sorry, what?
I think we also did that in your other class.
Which other class?
Exposition one. Like the plugging, multiplying.
Okay. In what context? You remember? Okay. So dag, right, represents bracha. What is lots of? There's a riboy, says Rashi. There's a riboy. Right? You see, there's a riboy. There's a lot. Yeah.
The sign of what we eat on Pesach. I mean Rosh Hashanah, sorry.
Very, very good. That is true. Very, very good. That's why we have the head of the fish.
Yeah,
Rosh Hashanah is a sign for that as well. Right? It's based upon this. The second time the word bracha is mentioned is in relation to Shabbat. Barachat Hashem. It's Yom Shabbat. Hashem blessed the seventh day. Okay? So the first time is fish. Right? And the second time we see the word bracha is in relation to Shabbat. There's got to be a connection. There's got to be a connection. Actually, we'll see there is a connection to fish itself, which is why it's a mitzvah to have fish on Shabbat. As a side point, right? You should have dag b'dag. You should have dag, fish on dag. What's dag? 4 and 3 is 7. You should have fish on Shabbat. There's a lot written on that. There's a mitzvah to have fish on Shabbat as a side point. Dag b'dag. But anyway, that's not what we're discussing now. We see that fish, what aspect of fish we're discussing right now? The riboy, the plentitude of it, the vast amount of fish that exist. Hashem had to give an extra blessing, baracha, and so too on Shabbat. Shabbat, there is an extra blessing that is put into that day, which is going to, listen very carefully, my friends, manifest itself during the rest of the week. Okay? We see a hint of this. That's basically from the Torah. But we see a hint of this in our song of Lachadodi that we sing to welcome in Shabbat. And it says, Likrat Shabbat, let us welcome the Shabbat, L'chu v'nachal, let us go and bring it in, Ki hi makor habracha. Right? It is the makor therefore it is the source of all blessing. It is the source of all blessing. When we say Baruch Atah Hashem, when you make a bracha, what are you saying? When I was a kid, I thought I'm blessing God. You don't have to bless God. What are you actually saying? Source of blessing are you. All the blessing we have in this world comes from Shabbat. For example, what blessings we want in this world? Health, right? Briut, yeah. Happiness, yes. Yes. Wealth, money, that's right. I was waiting for that one. Don't feel guilty. You've got to make a living. You can't pay to be without getting an income. Don't be shy about it. So no, bracha. No, it's saying this is what the success is. The blessing. Hashem is saying, I am the source of all this blessing. God is the source of all blessing in this world. He separated a day of the week that the source of blessing comes out from. The source of blessing. Okay. Just for interest, it's like what's going to do with knees? How do knees play into this? Berakayim. Right. What are knees? Without knees, let's say your knees are in traction. What are you doing? You're wobbling, yes. Probably falling over, Sarah. Right, hopping around. Knees are what propel us forward. Nachon? Knees are what propel us forward. The knees allow us to have traction. They move us. If you don't have blessing, you're stuck. Without panasah, without briut, you're stuck. Right? So what does blessing do? It allows us to push forward and become. That is why, by the way, when you make a bracha, what do? Say Baruch. What do you do when you say Baruch in the Amidah? Baruch, you bend your knees, right? You bend your knees. And then you Atah, and then Hashem, you stand up for Hashem. Nachon? Right? You bend your knees, right? It's a sign of humility, right? Sign of worship, but it's the knees saying, you are the source of the bracha. Everything that propels me forward, the blessing I'm about to make, that comes from you, Hashem. The bracha is coming from you. Nachon? Okay?
I have a question.
So when you're saying Baruch Atah Hashem, you say, you Hashem, you are the source of all bracha that exists in the world. What we're saying now is, you know where you get the manifestation of the most bracha? The Torah told us. Hashem told us in the Torah that I bless Shabbat. What do you mean bless Shabbat? That means I made Shabbat the source of blessing. If you want to, everyone goes to the great rabbis for a blessing, right? Fam yeshidduch, right? And give me, bless me for this and bless me for that. We do this as an Indian, right? We all go to the great rabbis, please bless me, I can be successful and in relationships and this and that. And that's all well and good. Right? By the way, you don't have to go to rabbis for that. The Gemara says you can go to anyone, even a birchat hediot, even the blessing from an ordinary person. The word hediot in the Gemara is related to the word idiot, which means an ordinary person. Even that. Right? You want to get a blessing? Go to your friends and give me a bracha to get successful. It's like, what do you want from me? I'm not a great rabbi. No problem. Go to any ordinary person, you'd be surprised. But you know what you should do? You know the best location to go to for a blessing? All these Jews, okay, all these Sephardi women go to the Rav for a bracha. Right? They're paying a lot of money. You know what? Go to Shabbat. Go to Shabbat. You can't not keep Shabbat and go for a blessing. That's just ridiculous. Because Shabbat is the Makora bracha. It's a sort of wealth and health and all good things is founded on Shabbat. By keeping Shabbat, you get to do it. Let's look at the Zohar. We'll do some Kabbalah. The Zohar says, we'll do it in the Hebrew. Kol habrachot shelamala umata, all blessings from the higher world and the lower world, Telu b'Yom HaShvi, are connected to the seventh day. It's all found that day. That's Hashem set up that day as a day where all the blessings come and we are able to act upon it. Okay? And he goes on, Am Rav Yehuda, Kol Yom V'Yom, Midbarach Olam, Hahu Me'elyon, every single day is blessed from this day Shabbat. Right? The Shabbat, as we said in our menorah analogy, here's the Shabbat in the middle, and all the rest of the week come, the light shines from Shabbat. Right? Shabbat is where it all comes from. Yeah? Every day it's given its blessing from that day. All right? Jump to the bottom of the page. This is a famous, I think it was a camper of Yosef Giktilia. He says, I found this in a book. He says, Hu makor kol shefa, all the shefa, all the abundance, v'chal tova, and all the good, right? Lo yamot for the rest of the week. All the good and all the blessing we have during the week comes from Shabbat, which is ironic because you're not working on Shabbat. You're just existing. That's the way God set it up. That's the way He sets it up. And by the way, and this is people get astonished when they read this. The Chofetz Chaim on page 33 goes as far as to say that you can visually see this. You can visually see this. The pasuk says in the Torah, Hakotov Omer, Ra'u ki Hashem natan lachem et Shabbat. See that Hashem gave you the Shabbat. What do you mean see? Hashem gave you Shabbat. You hear, you read, you don't see. The Chofetz Chaim says, and if the Chofetz Chaim didn't say it, I wouldn't have believed it. Klomar, why does the Torah say, see that I gave you the Shabbat? Ra'u be'einechem, look with your eyes, mamash. Ketzad Shabbat ma'anika lachem et ha'parnasa kol yemei hashavua. You'll see amazing things from people who keep Shabbat and how it affects their parnasah the rest of the week. V'Hashem noten lachem et Shabbat v'fanes et kol yemei hashavua. It's a visible thing. You can actually see the blessing power of Shabbat, right? You can see it. That's what he's saying. I mean, that's what he said, right? Where do we see, one second, where do we see, I'm finish with this. Where do we see a proof of this in history? Where do we see a proof of this in history? So it all comes down to the man. The man. The man was the food that fell from Shemayim, the manna that fell for the Jewish people. And we know that it fell every single day, Omer legulgalit. There was one Omer, one portion for every head, right? For every household. Okay? Every day a different amount fell. Friday came, and something unusual happened. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, which is quoted in the Torah, tell the Jewish people, don't go out on Shabbat for man. You cannot do that. That's carrying. You cannot. Shabbat, no man. What are we going to eat on Shabbat? There's going to be a double portion that's going to fall on Friday. Collect it. Normally, you couldn't have any left over from Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. Whatever was left over rotted and disappeared. It was forbidden to have any left over and try to do the next day. You had to complete it and finish it off. Okay, otherwise it disappeared. Right? It rotted and went away. However, on Friday, you have Friday's portion and Shabbat's portion. How do we commemorate this double portion of man today? How do we remember it? 2 chalot, right. Lechem, Mishnah, a double bread. Mishnah is a repetition, a double bread. We have 2 chalot. What else do we do? Oh, there's 2 chalot to remember the mitzvah, the miracle of the man. We cover it above and underneath. We cover the challah above and underneath. Why? Because the man was also covered with a layer of dew, not Jew, right? Dew underneath, and a layer of dew over it. It was refrigerated. It was kept in a box, in a kufsa, fresh for the people. So we do the same with the challah. So the challah we have on Shabbat, and the double portion, which is a mitzvah on Shabbat, actually, so Shabbat is now being connected to the man. Right? The man we came for 40 years. We're like, oh, but you want to understand what the man's all about? It's all about Shabbat. Why? Yeah, we haven't done that yet. We've got to connect it. Why are we doing that? Why are we connecting the man to the challah on Shabbat? We do it. It is actually, that's the reason. That's why, halacha, according to Jewish law, you can't just put bread, challah on the table. You've got to put like a tablecloth or a metal tray or something. Then you have to have a challah cover above it. That is remembrance of the double covering over the double portion of the man. Wow, why are we putting the man into Shabbat, right, for those meals? So Rashi says it's the same thing. Man equals Shabbat. Follow inside, because this is cool. Rashi brings the Chazal, okay, on a pasuk. It says, "Vayvarech Elokim et Yom HaShvi." Hashem blessed the 7th day. Okay. And he says, how did he bless the 7th day? Baruch hu b'man. He blessed it with the man. Shekol Shavua, because every day of the week, Yarad lehem Omer legugolet. There was one portion. And Omer is a portion, an amount per head. Uvashishi lechem mishnah, but on Shishi on Friday there was a lechem mishnah, there was a double portion. Okay. V'mikra kotov al shema atid. Now, if you look at the pasuk, it says Hashem blessed vivarech in the future. Not barach. He blessed in the future. He blessed in the future the Shabbat with the man. What do you mean he blessed it? One second. You're telling me Hashem blessed the seventh day. How? By bringing a double portion of man. But the blessing that is used in the Torah is the atid, the future tense. Hashem will bless with the man. But we don't get man anymore. It's done. Because of this, Rashi, the commentators jump on this and say, what is Rashi talking about when he says that there will be a future blessing, but the man came in the past? So he answers and says like this, and we'll learn something very important from this idea, and then we'll finish. When Hashem created the world, He blessed the seventh day, future tense. Future tense. There is a blessing inherent in Shabbat that will always exist into the future. Okay, it wasn't a one-time blessing. Right? He blessed the fish that they would always multiply. He blessed the Shabbat that it would always be a source of blessing. Okay, that's why it's in the future tense. Okay, let's tie in the man. Listen carefully and let's close the circle. Because we know that blessing comes to this world through Shabbat for the rest of the week. Right? The blessing that came is always going to be there. That's Hashem created the world. But the man is just one example of that. It's the greatest example of it. You see, the man is an example of future blessing, of double portion, that you will get a double portion during the week in honor of Shabbat. Can you see that? The man is the proof text that Shabbat is a source of blessing because you don't have to work on Shabbat and you still get a double portion on Friday. So it's in the future tense, because although the man fell down once, the idea of man blessing and Shabbat blessing is continual. So the future tense for the man is used as well. And that's why it says, we actually sing this, Shamar Rav Shua, that is, Rabbi Eliezer says, Hinei L'dor Rishon, it was the first generation, that's the generation the Jewish people left Mitzrayim and received the man, Natan Kadoshi, they got holiness, Mofet Beteta Lechem Misha B'Shishi, they got a double portion. So they got a double portion of man during the week in honor of Shabbat. Kacha, so too, we sing this on Shabbat, by the way. B'chol Shishi, every Friday, Yachpil Mosani, we get a kaful, it's doubled up. This is how it's going to be forever. The man is an example of us. That's why it says in the future tense, right? That it will be blessed, and the man came and will keep coming, right? Meaning that that's always going to be there. That is always going to be there. It's a continuation of it. Okay? We shall pick up this topic of the blessing of Shabbat next class with a good story from the Chavetz Chaim.